Welcome back to the Heroes of the Dorm Super 16, where we are 5 matches into the 8 we will see today. But if you're just joining us, let us clue you in to what we've seen so far. With our bracket, here we go, Tim.
Yeah, here it is. Washington and Tennessee will be shaping up in the Epic 8 as we saw those wonderful matches. Washington just come out dominant against Irvine in the top left corner. And bracket B, UT Arlington and Boston College will be moving forward. Both teams showing dominant as well there. I believe they both got a 2-0 victory. We just witnessed UConn versus Ohio State, and UConn went 2-0 as well. Gainer 2 had a little bit more trouble, but still a team that you have to keep your eye on. Our number 1 seeds continue to move forward here as we have more matchups as well down the bottom right corner. Arizona State Penn will be coming up, and we're going to be watching East Carolina versus Minnesota.
Here we see East Carolina versus Minnesota, and this is a match that Tim and I have been talking about all day as one that we think is going to be very close. All of the other ones we casted today were pretty big 2-0s. Even Ohio State versus UConn, it was still a 2-0, though Ohio State really gave UConn a run for their money. Yeah. But with this one, I think it's going to be pretty close, Tim.
Yeah, East Carolina, they kind of have Oddish, the hero of the dorm, if you will. Oddish has been really showing up and showing her plays, and our team is built around her. Demore, Dirty Harry, Gare Bear, and Red Angel. But we're going to need more than just a star when it comes down to it. We're seeing teams that have teamwork and efficiency doing better than just a star player.
Right.
Red Angel is a guy that's really starting to stand out for me on this team. He needs to make sure that he shows up today and he's helping out. But in terms of the matchups in the round of 64 and the round of 32, Keybuild Brightwing showed up. They brought an incredible crazy play. Stitches was on point for the team. We saw some great Sonya play as well. So today, we should be seeing just as much pressure from them.
I don't think anybody will forget the leap with the Divine Palm that Keybuild Brightwing brought us.
Beautiful.
But here we have the University of Minnesota, and we saw them the round of 32 versus Georgia Tech. They had a very strong showing, a 2-0 over Georgia Tech, with even a level 10 fight in the first game that their opponents just never recovered from. And a lot of that comes down to Subnova and Soybean, 2 players I think who are really impressive. Subnova is the one who the rest of the teammates really believe is the best mechanical skilled player on the team.
Yeah, gotta agree with that. And here they are just constantly bringing out the aggression. In fact, this is a great save here as we had a huge Divine Palm on their Thrall player, and they really just turned that aggression around. Minnesota showed up the other day, and I want to see them show up this weekend as well, because they've shown that they have what it takes to really break down opponents, but they got to make sure that today they bring that same action.
Plus, with a name like Banana Cabana,
yeah,
you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Sounds like a really tasty drink. I kind of want a Banana Cabana now.
Maybe after this match, as we will be done
Gilly.
for the day.
Let's check
but
it
we'll
out.
still have Jake and Kevin, so we can maybe rub it in their faces a bit.
All right, so look into the matchup. I'm already ready for this. I think I may just slightly give Keybuild Brightwing the slight lead here. I feel like they have a little bit more pressure. They have a little bit more swagger about them. They have that confidence. They believe that they can take on this match, and they're kind of already looking towards the Epic 8 tomorrow. They feel like they're going to go against Arizona State. Now, of course, that can be a downfall. If you ever forget about a team or sleep on them,
yes,
they could totally come back and throw you for a loop, and that could just throw your mindset out the window.
Yeah, when we talked to Oddish, she said that, yeah, they were looking at Banana Cabana from Minnesota, but they were way more focused on what they needed to do to defeat Arizona State, as they view them as the top contender in their bracket, and I can't blame them.
I think it was best said by Oddish as well. She's like, hey, if we do beat today and we go to Arizona State tomorrow and we beat them, we'll just casually win the entire tournament. She's like, we'll just casually win the entire tournament. And I'm like, you guys are so confident, but I love it. We want to see that in Heroes of the Dorm. But on the other side, Minnesota, again, a team that can especially show up here and make some plays happen.
Well, we are ready for the draft, so let's see what swagger they're going to bring to Tomb of the Spider Queen.
All right, so here we are. A couple of heroes that you do have to remember with East Carolina, and their Stitches and their Sonya play was very strong, so we could see targeted bans here from Minnesota. The problem with that is East Carolina has already mentioned that they have a reservoir, tons of heroes already back behind them they can pick up at any point. Zagara will be banned out here. A lot of teams are getting tired of being hit by the Devouring Maw, it seems like.
I mean, who likes being pulled away from your team for a lot of seconds while this Maw is doing damage to you?
I don't think I do.
No,
I don't think I do
either.
Gilly.
Plus, Red Angel on East Carolina, you were talking a bit about him. Zagara is a very strong hero for him. And with already Zagara being a good hero for Tomb of the Spider Queen, it makes a lot of sense to take them out. East Carolina are going to first pick Rhaegar, not something I've seen in a while.
Yeah, Dirty Harry is a player that has a few heroes that he's good at. He's good at Karazim and Rhaegar, and it looks like East Carolina's kind of fluctuating around that. They're going to pick up the heroes that he's strong on and then build around him because he is a little bit on the newer side. He can play assassins if need be, if Rhaegar and Karazim were picked or banned out, but picking up that Rhaegar allows for him to be on support.
Now we have Li Ming and Thrall being picked up by Minnesota, so they have a good solo lane hero as well as great damage from them, a good initiation too from Sundering. So very strong 2 picks that Minnesota have been able to get. And I have to wonder maybe if East Carolina is hiding strategy a bit by getting that first pick of Rhaegar.
Yeah, you gotta kind of wonder what they're going to be going for. They could potentially go for a double support pickup, especially after seeing Minnesota's real cards here. They're picking up a hero that's very good at burst, and we've seen double support kind of really help with that mana tension that you can see from Li Ming. And Greymane will be the pickup for East Carolina, and East Carolina picking up Greymane is a huge comfort pick.
Yes.
They love playing Greymane. I think it's one of their favorite heroes. It allows for them to be aggressive but also play the poke build. They feel in a comfort zone when they get that. And we're actually getting the Tyrande. Gilly, I see your face.
This is something Oddish told us about. They really like playing the double support with Tyrande specifically. Oddish loves playing Tyrande just a little bit differently than we've seen from some of the others Tyrande so far, but we'll leave that as a surprise to come once we get into the game, but that will almost certainly be Oddish's hero.
Yeah, Minnesota's going to have to be a little bit careful here because Oddish does like going with the Searing Arrows, bringing the attack damage to Tyrande, really applying that damage wherever possible. So make sure not to go toe-to-toe with Tyrande in that scenario unless you have a trump card, some kind of stun or some kind of ability to get that engagement that you want. Because if it goes down to actual auto-attack versus auto-attack, Tyrande in that scenario can win a majority of fights.
Tim, I was just trying to hype it up and not see what was going on.
Oh, my bad, dude. I just totally broke it.
Always ruining the surprises. Well, now we have the bans coming in, and I like this ban from Minnesota. They know what's up. They have done their homework on East Carolina. East Carolina has been focusing on getting Diablo a lot, and with Tyrande already being grabbed by them, the ability to be able to overpower someone into a Lunar Flare would be very devastating for Minnesota.
A lot of warriors being banned out here. Minnesota needs to think about what they want to pick up. Stitches could be a hero that is taken here for East Carolina, so if Minnesota could take that away from them, that could be a great pick for them. Stitches now going to be taken. A nice snipe there. That prevents East Carolina from picking up a really robust warrior. We'll have to see what they're going to try and pick up in exchange. Sylvanas will be pulled out for Minnesota as well. I love Sylvanas actually against Tyrande, but the double support makes it a bit harder, but having that dagger come in and really just kind of spread amongst the team can really allow her damage numbers to influx and allow Li Ming and Thrall to get in there and bring that damage whenever they need to get kills.
It also allows you to get more value out of a Web Weaver phase than you may not otherwise, because she can turn off the structures, which makes the defense,
Okay. All right.
Another thing they told us they were doing.
East Carolina is pulling out all the surprises in game number 1. They've been talking about really bringing some Nubrak in here, and they've been telling their teammates, hey, I want you to focus on playing a Nubrak. I want to see if this is a hero that people are sleeping on. Bringing out a Nubrak as a warrior is not only a comfort pick here for East Carolina, but this is a pick that they would love to see really show the viewers how good of a hero he can be when it comes to tanking.
They do have always some interesting picks for us. I'm very curious as to whether we're going to see the Cocoon or if we'll have Locust Swarm for the sustainability. I think probably Locust Swarm, although they do have a double support. So maybe their idea is just try to pull somebody out of the fight with Cocoon and take the other ones down while they're in the process. Yeah,
you gotta wonder what Minnesota wants to pick up here. You want to pick up a support that if he is picked up by the Cocoon, that it isn't going to ruin the entire team fight. Uther, Divine Shield being cocooned out and Cleanse being taken away could be spell disaster for Minnesota, so I'm not sure what support they would like to pick up. You want to pick up somebody that can kind of sit in the back there or go super aggressive with Karazim, so I kind of like it. We'll see how this works out for him, and Karazim actually being up the front is kind of a pseudo warrior in itself when he gets Relentless, so he'll be in the front line, so if a Cocoon actually does go on top of Karazim, Sylvanas and Thrall can poke it down and allow Karazim to dash back with Radiant Dash. I actually like this pickup a lot.
Yeah, they've got a very strong front line between Karazim, Stitches, and Thrall, and I always really like when a team picks up Karazim, specifically when they've got people who really want to stay in the back line and people who really want to stay in the front line. Because he has Radiant Dash, it's really easy for him to move back and forth to heal each side up.
Now, the only thing I want to mention here for East Carolina is they are suffering a little bit here in wave control. They do have Grammy that does a pretty decent job in Worgen form, and they do have Vala that can auto-attack and go multi-shot build, but a Nubrak is one of the warriors that's pretty bad at actually dealing with lanes. In fact, he's more of a hero that kind of just sits there in posture and soaks experience. He can't push that well without spending too much mana. So I'm afraid about a Nubrak in that regard, but in terms of team fight, they do have tools that they can make situations be 5v4s for them.
Yeah, a lot of crowd control.
Yeah.
Especially with Anubarak, that's always the thing is he has burrow charge, so he can go right in, throw down impales to be able to stun some of the members, allow his team to start putting on the damage, and then when he needs to, he can burrow charge out back to the safety of his healer.
Yeah, the more I think about it, I think Cocoon's going to be the choice here. I think it may work out for the team, and with the Lunar Flare or an engage that occurs here, that really works out for Tyrande. They can really make scenarios work out for them. I think you're right. Crowd control is the name of the game for him here. You might as well go all the way in here. Get that Cocoon, knock somebody out, win the team fight. So looking over to East Carolina, I think they have a solid draft. I want to see how they play in the early game, because that will kind of indicate how the tempo will go going into the mid game. Well,
we're going to see right now, Tim, because the game is ready to go. Game number 1 on Tomb of the Spider Queen between East Carolina and Minnesota.
All right, here we go. On the far left, East Carolina gonna be showing up. Oddish there in the top left corner. Keep an eye on her as she makes the plays necessary to help her team win. Demore, Dirty Harry, Garaberry, and the guy I'm keeping my eye on, Red Angel.
And their opponents in red is Minnesota, with Subnova playing Leeming, one of his favorites. Gonzo on Thrall, Prey playing Stitches, Soybean playing Karzim, and finally Murzik on, I believe, his favorite hero, Sylvanas. Yeah, it is.
Very, very cool here. All right, well, we'll see where the pressure is in the middle of the map. I want to see potentially Sylvanas in the bottom lane. She can do a lot of pressure and really keep on the pain whoever's down there in the bottom lane. And if you can get Vala to go down in the bottom, that's actually a pretty big, large win, because then you can own the middle and the top, which can be lanes that are actually very hard for Tyrande and Anubarak to deal with.
Well, it's a new match, and we have a new poll, guys, so make sure that you are tweeting and telling us who is going to win. Use the hashtag Heroes of the Dorm, as well as a hashtag of the team who is going to be victorious and move on to the Epic 8.
Red Angel indicating that he might go for an auto-attack build, so that'll be fun. We've been seeing a lot of multi-shot builds, but do be aware, again, the auto-attack build is a little bit harder when it comes to wave clear. So 3 members now in the top lane here as Tyrande, Anubarak, and Vala will be pushing that in the middle. We have Dirty Harry trying his best to soak that lane as well, with Greymane here on the bottom, having to deal with Gonzo, Karazim, and of course Subnova.
Not only auto-attack for Vala, by the way, but Seasoned Marksman for Tyrande, so full-on auto-attack there, too.
Full auto-attack
build. But Oddish takes so much damage from the Arcane Orb, but it will be them who still pick up first blood on Thrall.
Yeah, Thrall being picked off. You got to be careful there. That Lunar Flare into the Hunter Mark, and then with the CC flare from Garaberry, you saw the Impale into the Burrow, just knocking him up. He's effectively stun-locked throughout the entire duration there. We're going to need to see Minnesota really try to mitigate that. Luckily for them, Soybean at level 10 will be able to get Divine Palm. So when everything is being focused on top of a single member, you can see that Divine Palm kind of save them from that area. But then again, if Cocoon comes into play, we're going to have this weird trade-off of trying to save teammates and, of course, trying to prevent the 5v4 from happening.
So don't forget, by the way, that this Sylvanas player, Murzik, is the one who was bringing about the Black Arrows build specifically, using that with Overwhelming Affliction at level 13 to put slows on the team members. And if they're able to do that, they have a lot of chase potential. That can be the difference of whether or not Leeming gets a big critical mass pickup to continue throwing out her abilities.
That could be really good against Greymane in particular here, that build, because whenever he goes into Worgen form, he does have a hard time fully chasing without using his Qs. There is a hook there from Oddish. Will get picked off. Oddish, though, now moving forward here, is able to retreat, healing up, especially with Rhaegar helping out. Unfortunately, the Lunar Flare will miss, and the teams will have to back up. But I do like the quick turnaround there. We saw the hook, but immediately Garaberry and Red Angel went to a scenario where they started putting pressure on Stitches.
Minnesota has such good wave clear that East Carolina has to continue being very mobile with their composition and really try to continue getting those picks, constantly looking for it, and maybe even making Minnesota feel a little bit more scared about pushing out into the lanes. You talked about how Minnesota does have that good wave clear, so it's really necessary for them to not lose too much from that, because that's where a team can start to snowball an experience lead into multiple turn-ins, into structures down, and then win the game.
Yeah, Gillyweed's correct here. If East Carolina can instill fear into Minnesota and make them play more passively, where they're in a scenario where, like, all right, let the waves push into us so we can at least soak the experience to get to 10, you're going to have East Carolina in a scenario where they're winning. Oddish, though, does come down here with Demore. It lands the Lunar Flare. Demore brings the damage, and that will be a quick kill on Thrall. thrall once again.
And it's once again forces a different hero down to soak this lane, which means, as you can see, they're playing passively. They're back up against their towers. They may look for a hook here on one of these members if they can, but East Carolina doing a good job of moving back once the minions who can protect them from that hook go down.
And the more I see here from a Nubarak Gearbear, I'm seeing the Nubarak Beetle build, which is, again, a huge indicator that he's probably going to be going Cocoon. You get to a point where you're starting to drop a lot of abilities there, where you're getting the beetles to maneuver around and give you self-healing. You're able to live just enough with your jukes and your jive, and that way you can use a Cocoon to knock somebody down here. So it looks like Beetle build into Cocoon will be the choice here for a Nubarak.
I like when we talked to Oddish, she said that they were really looking into Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Yeah.
It was very important for them that they developed good strategies for this battleground specifically, so that they could get that game lead on their opponents and feel very confident moving in with the momentum into game number 2. So with that Beetle build too, that's going to help out with the wave clear a little bit, which is something that we said that they had been lacking on.
Yeah, she mentioned they were fearful of this map, and you're totally correct there. They believe that if they actually do this battleground, they're going to be fine going into game number 2, but having an advantage going into game number 1 can be such a confidence booster. So we'll see East Carolina trying to maneuver that way. Greymane is going for a cocktail build here that would help them with the wave clear as well. So they do have talents here that they're picking that's helping them mitigate all of this, and they're not actually taking too much pressure. I feel like Minnesota started backing off on all the pressure they were originally putting on, especially after seeing Thrall caught a few times. In fact, they put Thrall in the middle lane, and they put Sylvanas in the bottom lane so they could stop having that member picked off. Yeah,
every turn-in too that they get, starting with this one, is going to further push back Minnesota, and that will help alleviate the potential for Minnesota to use that wave clear advantage that they have to take out tower. So they are still going to get that tower, but all of the waves now are going to push into the structures, and this is a chance for East Carolina to start getting some damage on the structures of Minnesota.
No, that's a really good point, actually, Gillyweed. Who needs wave clear if you can get the objectives to do it for you? There goes the hook. Gearbear will retreat. The Lunar Flare hits 3 members there, though, as Gonzo, Soybean, and Prey are hit there by Oddish. Now the pressure in the middle lane is starting to occur. The top lane's getting pushed in as well. Savannah's starting to break it down, but Greymane is going to force Murzik to retreat here as he helps out this Web Weaver with pushing in.
Importantly too, one of the key members of this rotation between all of the lanes has been Oddish, and when you have seasoned marksmen, that's exactly what you want to do, as getting those minions and the hero takedowns gives you those stacks to start building up your damage. Add to that the fact that they have searing arrows, and into the late game, Tyrande is going to be a damage machine.
Yeah. Especially if she's never actually having any pressure on her.
Yep.
If she's able to maneuver around and get that DPS in there, she can do a lot of work on her opponents. Gonzo trying to go in for the whoop there. Unfortunately, it will miss as Oddish does juke away, as well as Prey's hook.
Yeah, those jukes are going to be very important, because one thing that Tyrande has a problem with is escape. Yeah. And so they know that if they can land a hook, if they can land a Feral Spirit onto Tyrande, it's very unlikely that she'll be able to get away. And the stun stops him from being able to hook her into them. So it's just going to be this dance for Oddish. But so far, Oddish is the one coming out ahead.
Well, Minnesota trying to finally get a turn in here, and they will drop a couple of gems. Subnova has 25 as well, so getting that turn in could warrant them a couple of Web Weavers, especially as they're moving towards level 10. They would love to get that around this time as well. But we see Red Angel and Gearbear really poking down Subnova and preventing this from happening. And again, she's trying to turn in, but Gearbear isn't having any of it.
If East Carolina can stall this out just a few more times while they're soaking, then they're going to have heroic abilities before Minnesota, and that's a time when they can strike. They could either go in, try to get some kills, or turn in the gems. They're nearly there to be able to get a second turn in a row.
All right, level 10 about to hit here for the blue team, and we see actually Limin coming around from the left down here, trying to get that wave clear because they want to make sure they're 10 as well. Just trying to keep the mid game just even with them. Toronto putting a lot of pressure actually in the top lane against Thrall, which is something you normally don't see.
There is Cocoon, we called it, and Noob is delivering. Also, Starfall for Oddish.
So I gotta wonder, do you go for the Divine Palm knowing that Cocoon's up? We'll see pretty soon here. Impale does go on Prey, and damage immediately here. Stitches is thrown across the map. The Welling Arrow is relatively huge, but Demore is just going in for the aggression. The Cocoon's a little bit too much. There's a Divine Palm, but now Murzik will be picked off, and these team fights are very, very clean. The Cocoon was a little bit too aggressive on Greymane there, but I understood why it happened.
Right, they put it down and then insta-turned onto the rest of the members. They nearly took them out. The Rain of Vengeance was good, but the Palm was able to make sure to at least help keep them alive. They only lost I believe 2 members in that fight.
Yeah, they only lost a couple there. So again, good fight there for East Carolina. Divine Palm was a pick there for Karazima, by the way. So he's going to have a hard dance in front of him, especially with the Cocoon being available. It is a relatively low cooldown, so we should see it every single team fight if possible. Now, East Carolina taking this lead once again, getting another turn in. More web weavers that come in and push the lanes for them.
Gotta talk about the Starfall too. The slow plus damage that came out helped them be able to get a very early kill in that fight, which put Minnesota on a deficit, a disadvantage throughout that entire fight. Now, once again, blue web weavers will be pushing. So again, this is a chance for East Carolina to relieve some of the pressure on their lanes and push back Minnesota into their base.
Minnesota has also picked up Wave of Force, by the way, which should allow Stitches to hit hooks, and then we could see Li Ming put a Wave of Force behind the opposing member that does get hooked, so they could focus somebody down, but you gotta wonder if it will be enough here, as the engagements from East Carolina have been so quick that a Wave of Force most likely wouldn't even help out a majority of fights.
Web Weavers pushing onto the top fort, into the bottom. They're trying to do what they can just to try to get a fort down somewhere. Gonzo, 20 gems, has to be careful not to lose these. They're starting to get to the point where they have a lot of gems. They have 41 turned in and 50 in the bank that they can potentially turn in if they could just get to that point and get East Carolina off of them. East Carolina have so many different abilities to stop potential turn-ins.
They don't stop. East Carolina.
No.
They're just constantly moving, constantly getting pressure wherever they can, grabbing mercenaries, trying to get into a fight to see one low member floating around. Now, I do want to note that Minnesota does have tools to get into an engagement and actually win a team fight, especially with that Sundering, the Stitches hook as well, and the Welling Arrow. If they can hit a key one on a Nubrak or Rhaegar before an Ancestral Healing goes off, or the Cocoon, they could turn a fight around really quickly.
Yeah, just getting potentially to a really big Wailing Arrow would be great for them, but East Carolina, they can't stop and they won't stop, especially picking up these mercenary camps. That makes Sylvanas have to respond. She makes her have to sit back, but this is Minnesota's chance. They get a hook onto Oddish. They also get a turn in. The Sundering comes out. The Starfall slows down the aggression, though. They're trying to get Oddish, but still can't even do that.
The Beetles actually spawning here as well are great against Li Ming because she's not actually able to get the damage. And the Wailing Arrow does come out, though. Members are low here for East Carolina. The Ancestral does hit Red Angel, and he's able to turn around and start maneuvering in. Subnova trying to flank from the top left corner and get damage in wherever she can here. Another Luna Flare does go out, but it looks like a botched fight for both teams.
I was very scared after that Wailing Arrow, but MVP Dirty Harry kept everyone alive, everyone topped up, so they still have heroes to defend versus this Web Weaver push.
And I do like, again, Gare Bear used an Impale there, not to actually get an engagement, but to get out a minion there, a Beetle, which actually tanked the damage from Subnova, which prevented a full all-in engage on Oddish, which allowed her to survive. So nice pickup there, as we'll be seeing the minion in the middle picked up, the Web Weaver in the top going to be cleared up as well. Do we have the fort in the bottom left finally getting picked off, though? It doesn't look like it'll be a full cleanup here, as the rest of the team for East Carolina has rotated, and they'll get rid of this Web Weaver.
Now, the clean was pretty fast, and East Carolina had level 13, so Minnesota may not have felt as good about being super aggressive with that as they wanted to be.
Sure.
Hook goes down onto Red Angel, though, and an immediate impale stops them from being able to get anything done with it.
What's interesting to note, too, is if these hooks do happen and we do see a team start to clamber back to their teammates, the arrow build here from Sylvanas is actually going to take that slow and apply it to the rest of the team. So the entire team gets slowed at once if they retreat away from a hook. So you don't actually need lockdown. You actually kind of count on them running back to their team and spreading that dagger to everyone.
Oh, so we used Putrid Bile trying to hook someone into it, but unfortunately for Prey, didn't quite work out for them, and they were able to withstand through that. So that's a little bit of time that they won't have that available. But East Carolina, they are going for the fight. Will they be able to find it? A Lunar Flare goes down onto Stitches. They're turning back around. Here comes Demore with the Greymane. Divine Palm once again saving the target. These have been on point, but that's a big Rain of Vengeance.
That was a huge Rain of Vengeance, as two members will be taken out. Nice follow-up there. I actually really like this a lot. The more I watch the team fight, we're seeing the Cocoon that goes down. It's not going on support like you normally would see in Hero League. We're seeing it go on any member possible, because what happens naturally is Minnesota is grouping up and trying to kill off the Cocoon to save their teammate, and they naturally just line up for a huge Rain of Vengeance.
Right.
We just just saw in an Impale. Nice team fights happening here for East Carolina, and Minnesota's got to watch out for that layered play.
Man, East Carolina even is proccing the palm. So then I'm like, no, that's not what you want to do. But then somehow they're still making the fight work, still being able to just damage all their way through it. And a lot of that comes from having that double support composition that they have.
Let's watch this again. The Impales goes down, hit 2 or 3 people. You see the Cocoon down in the bottom right. Everyone walks down here to try to start putting damage on that Cocoon, and 3, 4 members getting caught. Pro is actually body blocked there in the top left corner, and East Carolina could potentially caught somebody else. The Impale did miss, so they went ahead and pulled back, took their winnings there, and tried to get a turn in. However, we did have the red web weavers released here as Minnesota was able to sneak a turn in.
Demore getting caught too, and that's quite a bit of gems down. I'm not sure that they'll be able to pick all of those up too. Minnesota doing a good job of just defending those, and they're even going to grab Oddish and be able to get a second kill.
Minnesota showing some teeth here as they're picking apart their teammates now. They got a 4th in the top left. They secured 2 takedowns there, Greymane and Toronto, which are major damage dealers and a very important part of this team. You're going to see Bear and Red Angel try to retreat. Red Angel needs to be a little bit careful though, just getting hooked.
And it's always a scary moment when you start to lose team members versus a Sylvanas, because it's a lot easier for them to push in and take down structures because they're able to just turn them off with black arrows. So it's always something you have to consider. Also, whenever they get web weaver phases, whenever they pick up mercenary camps, or, oh man, even a boss, you can get so much more value out of it than you would otherwise.
Very true. And Gilly, looking at the experience, we're actually even now as East Carolina's been leading for a majority of the game, but Minnesota getting those 2 forts and those couple of kills are really starting to fight back. 6 to 6 in terms of kills, or I'm sorry, 6 to 2 in terms of kills here. Only 6 towers left up here for Minnesota, 4 left for East Carolina. You're starting to see Minnesota really showing up, and as they get to the late game here, the comp's getting a bit stronger as the pickoffs aren't as easy to pull off for East Carolina.
Right, and when you have more structures still up, it's a buffer for you. It's literally your shields against your core, so it allows you to be far more aggressive versus your opponents. You feel much more much safer to be out onto the battleground, knowing that even if you lose a couple of members, you have so many structures that they still have to go through, so you can take those risks that your opponents cannot.
All right, and Nubrak picking up blood for blood solely there for Stitches. He does have a high health pool, and that'll also keep up Nubrak in terms of health as well as be able to steal some away, but again helping out with the burst there as they try to take away prey whenever he's a little bit too forward. Gonzo trying to get engaged here. You see him looking for a wolf, unfortunately not able to hit it. Had he hit that, you saw prey positioned in a scenario where he could hit a hook.
Executioner and True Shot Aura coming out at level 16 for both Vala and Tyrande. So they're really trying to look at being able to do a bunch of damage with their auto attacks to one person. Just take them out of the fight very fast, especially if they can catch somebody with their Rain of Vengeance, while somebody who is key to the fight is cocooned.
So East Carolina looking to grab their first 4 of the game there will be killed off. In the bottom lane, they also have a web weaver. They could retreat and start setting up for that as well. The hook, though, does come out for prey and will hit Red Angel. He is in trouble. He does turn around and hits the Rain of Vengeance. 2 members dispatched of immediately. There will be a cocoon, and another member could be in trouble.
I feel like that was baited.
Yeah.
Who's in this cocoon? They're in trouble regardless,
oh
and Li Ming is melted.
This Rain of Vengeance into Cocoon is just doing so much work. It's versatile. It's not a 1-2 combo every single time. You could do a Cocoon first, wait for the team to come in, go for the Rain of Vengeance. You could Rain of Vengeance because you got hooked, and the Cocoon a major initiator there, and then kill them off after you've taken out 2 people. I really like this Nubrak play.
Dude, it almost felt like they were trying to bait a hook. Like, hook Vala, she's gonna vault away, and when you try to jump on her, we've got Rain of Vengeance. We've got Starfall as well to slow them down, start putting the damage on too. The plays have been great from East Carolina, and you're right, I'm totally loving this Noob play.
Gotta see if they can keep up with it, though. Remember, they only did get 1 fort, and remember, forts, keeps, and cores are how you do win this game. You can win team fights all day, but if you don't get to that core, you, of course, will most likely lose the game. Now, in the bottom right corner, we have pressure once again occurring here for East Carolina. We see all of Minnesota trying to rotate down as they do have all their members up. We're at 16 minutes, though. Dead timers are becoming very, very important. This is where scenarios where we see these team fights happen could be game ending.
Right. If they get another fight like that, I would like to see them go for the boss, knowing that they just don't have the push power. And the most they can do, even when they win such a decisive team fight, is to get 1 fort down. If they could get the boss, then naturally that's just going to help. It's going to do the pushing for them.
Yeah.
And they can just look to see somebody get out of position, cocoon them, wait for everyone to come in, and then take yet another good team fight. And they even have Hunter's Mark, so they can take the boss down fast.
I totally agree with you, and I think Minnesota is actually kind of catching wind on that too. They're starting to really rotate around the top lane and just try to keep the lane pushing for them, because those lanes, although the experience is great, getting the vision is more important for them to make sure that that scenario that Gilly just mentioned does not happen.
Knowing that they've pulled Minnesota up to the top, we're going to see them move around to the lower lanes. Rhaegar has been pushing in that bottom lane where he can. They're just trying to get whatever gems they can to get yet another turn in and make some magic happen off of that. It's a long way until Minnesota are able to get a turn in of their own, so I think they've been losing some gems in these fights.
Yeah, turn-ins in level 20 are definitely the name of the game for our team. Spray, though, does get hit by a Lunar Flare. Luckily, that Relentless will allow him to walk away as he's able to stop the duration of that stun from occurring. Gare Bear floating around here. You see Prey going for a hook. It will miss on Red Angel once again. Oddish and Gare Bear finally getting a few turn-ins. They are now 5 gens away from getting another Web Weaver push.
Who are those gems on? It must be whomever is turning it up top. I think it's on
Greymane,
and he's going to be able to get it. All of the members of Minnesota were in the bottom. Now, what can they do with these Web Weavers? Still 2 forts remain.
I would wait until these Web Weavers did show up to the lanes first. Don't get over aggressive here. You're ahead and lead. Get the pressure happening towards the opponent, get the forts, get the keeps, get level 20, and then you start causing team fights. This is a scenario where a lot of teams could actually throw the game because they realize they're ahead, they have Web Weavers, but they fight before the objective actually gets to them, and you see a team turn it around and then push back and grab their own momentum if possible. Yeah,
I like that plan. If they can get 20 off of this, then they could go up to that boss once the Web Weaver phase is over and force Minnesota to come to them, come to a team fight where East Carolina will obviously have the advantage with those Storm tier talents.
Yeah, the bait and switch. Look like you're going to get the boss, but switch on top of your opponents and take them out and then go win the game. We'll see if that will be the plan here for East Carolina. They are pushing the top lane as hard as they can. Grabbing these towers does reward infrastructure, which will get them closer to the ever-looming goal of getting level 20. We see all of Minnesota taking a safe path, trying to rotate around, but 20 is now here for East Carolina. How do they take this advantage and use it to their advantage?
Well, they could see if they find somebody out of position, but they need to always be conscious of the fact that Frey has the fishing hook at 16 and can pull someone into the team, and may look to do that here as they take out the Web Weaver. He's starting to move in, hasn't thrown it out yet. Good job by East Carolina moving back immediately from that. They don't want to give away this small advantage that they have.
Very true there, and they're very close to getting level 20 in Minnesota here.
And there they go.
Cars away, and there's a boss being focused down here with Hunter Mark. They can burn it quickly. We do see the team floating around here. Subnova will poke first so we can get an idea if anyone is there. He does see Dirty Harry, and there will be the orb. Stitches is actually going to hook the Rhaegar, but with the totem going down, this boss becomes an immediate freebie for the team there.
And it's a freebie that heads to core.
Yeah, just pushes straight to top lane, and you see East Carolina turning on the Jets here, looking to get an engage. There's the Luna Flare. Prey will start retreating. Luckily, Relentless is helping. He's going to pop his Putrid Boil to slow down this entire team, but you see East Carolina happy with getting that heroic.
Yep, they are going to consciously, slowly move behind this boss and continue to watch the positioning of their opponents. Wait for someone that they might be able to cocoon or may be able to find with that Rain of Vengeance, even a Lunar Flare if they can get it, and they're moving in with the Starfall.
Going straight for the core. They do have auto attack heroes. Remember, Bala and Toronto has spec damage here, so they can just hit the core if possible. Cocoon does hit in the back right there corner. 2 members now fall, and Sylvanas and Thrall. Soybean trying to show up and help the teammates. Subnova cannot die here. If Subnova dies, they will lose any chance of winning the game. Subnova does fall, and that is going to be Airs East Carolina taking game number 1 with aggressive play, different play at that, but play they pulled off so well that I am just proud of them.
So decisive, too. Throughout this tournament, I know Jake has mentioned it, the idea of a team knowing when they have lethal, when they are able to go for a win. Sometimes we don't see that from these newer teams that are coming up, and they aren't able to take advantage of windows that they have, of opportunities like having the Storm talents. But they knew, yes, all of the members were up, but we have this boss. We can wait patiently until someone gets out of position, and then they struck with the Starfall, immediately taking out one member.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if we should have seen Minnesota try to go for a hook at the very end there, right behind the boss, grab somebody in, pull them to the core, and then fight that quickly so they could get a 5v4. But East Carolina, really, in terms of owning this battleground, they just held everything down. They took a comp that you normally don't see. You usually see a lot of wave clear on this battleground because, again, it's kind of the name of the game for a lot of players. But they went a different route. They went for takedowns, they went for engagements, and they went for solid, methodical team fights. And they just picked everyone apart and allowed the objective, the map objective, to do all the way pushing for them. It was so fun to watch.
Yeah, I want to highlight two things specifically for them that have given them this 1-0 over Minnesota. One of the things is, I mentioned when I watched them early on in the groups, when we commentated them in the round of 64, that sometimes I felt that they struggled with focusing someone down, and they had to do that with the composition that they did. So really being able to work on their weaknesses to be this very strong team. And when we talked to Oddish, she said they were focusing more on a Tomb of the Spider Queen and strategies for that versus maybe looking more at Minnesota. And I was worried about that. I thought maybe that wasn't going to pay off for them, but it definitely did.
Working on your weaknesses apparently can pay off sometimes in these huge tournaments. Yeah, right? So nice job by them working it out on Tomb of the Spider Queen. Now, remember at home, if you want to get more information, go to heroesofthedorm.com, find out more about the teams and, of course, all the stats. But thank you so much for watching. We'll be getting ready for game number 2 right after this break.
We are back at Heroes of the Dorm Super 16, right in the middle of the matchup between East Carolina and Minnesota, with East Carolina only one game away of moving to the Epic 8.
And it's looking like if they played in game number 1 and they bring out unorthodox strategies and pull them off that well, in game number 2 they'll have no problem. And a lot of it comes down to just their team roster working together as a team to get better and better. You know, Red Angel is a guy that Oddish was giving a lot of praise. Mentioned that Red Angel is actually a newer player to Heroes of the Storm. He's been working really, really hard. He, in fact, started around rank 25 in Hero League, which is actually kind of mid-tier when it comes to Hero League. But he moved all the way to rank 1, which is one of the best ranks you can get in the span of, I think, 48 hours. This guy is focusing on becoming very, very strong as a player, and it was very noticeable. Especially in that game. He went in Auto Attack Vola, which is a mechanically demanding build, and he pulled it off almost flawlessly.
I remember talking to Oddish after the group stage, and they were talking about switching the heroes out. They've actually played with a different player in the round, in the group stage, than Red Angel, and so pulling Red Angel in was one of the scariest moments for them, not knowing how that was going to work out for them. But she said that he is so dedicated to making the team work and has been just playing out of his mind. And there we saw Oddish too, kind of the darling of Heroes of the Dorm so far. This team has really gotten a lot of fans from their really cool and flashy plays. And after that Anubrak game, I can't blame you guys for enjoying East Carolina's play.
Yeah, the beat-up build was well thought out. I just felt like every single type of heroic and talent choice was so layered that it worked out together, that there wasn't a telegraphed way of how that comp was going to work out. They could be flexible based on how the fights were going, and if they understood how to fight in every scenario, it'd work out for them. And in every scenario that happened there, they totally outplayed their opponents, which was such a cool treat to see, and I hope to see more of that.
Now we will be moving to a different battleground, and it will be the choice of the losers there of Minnesota. So potentially they could bring East Carolina to a place where they won't feel more as confident, as comfortable, because they had spent so much time preparing for Tomb of the Spider Queen.
I actually have the battleground here. It's going to be Sky Temple.
Okay.
Which may be a map that Minnesota is all about, but when it comes to East Carolina, they mentioned that if they ever lose a match, they go straight to Sky Temple.
Yep.
So it's actually the strongest map for both teams, it looks like. So we'll have to see how it battles out, but this is a map that we know that East Carolina is all about. They love this battleground. They love the way that it forces people to team fight because they feel so strong in the scenarios.
Well, we will see who comes ahead in the draft as it's ready right now, and we will see which heroes each team can grab.
All right. Halfway through the draft, it looks like Warriors are going to be the name of banning out again in game number 2. Diablo, Stitches, and Johanna banned out. Brightwing as well here. We have Thrall and Muradin from Minnesota. On the other side, East Carolina has picked up Zagara, Rhaegar, and Falstad.
Okay, so we still have a warrior needed for East Carolina. So it's interesting that we saw them banning the Johanna, but maybe that will come back to bite them because of how Minnesota has played this out. Just depends if Gare Bear wants to be able to play that Anubrak again or needs to play something different. We talked to Oddish. She said that Gare Bear is still growing a lot as a player. A lot of the times we have newer players in this game who still are trying to get those hero pools up for when a situation like this happens.
Man, if he's going to grow as a player that can play Anubrak that well, I'm very excited for his future. Looking over to Minnesota. Sylvanas and Lunara. Now remember that Sylvanas build that we saw earlier can be pulled out again here, and Lunara will benefit from that at level 13 whenever she grabs up that talent that allows her to apply extra damage to heroes that are slowed. So the synergy is available here for Minnesota. In fact, if they wanted to, and this is just a dream of mine, we go Earthquake, Executioner, Thrall, and really just melt everyone down, right? That would be so fun to watch, especially with Sylvanas' build, and Murden, I believe, had Executioner as well, so they could really break some people down, but that's just me dreaming.
It's called Give Him the Axe.
Give Him the Axe. That's right. Take him out. East Carolina will have a 4th and 5th hero that they can pick up here. Already, though, Zagara and Rhaegar are great comfort picks for them. They love Devouring Maw. They love the Rhaegar play. Again, Dirty Harry plays a mean Rhaegar and a mean Karazine, so getting those heroes in the beginning of the draft is great for this team.
The Lunara and Sylvanas that you mentioned is something that they played in the round of 32 versus Georgia Tech, and it was very devastating.
Okay.
So if they can make it to that late game without losing too much, it's just a level 13 where they pick up both of those talents, and then they can start to cause problems for East Carolina. But yet, 2 more picks left. We'll need a warrior for sure, and it will be a Nubarak once again.
Going straight for a Nubarak once again. A Nubarak can work here. You can force the engagements. I kind of would like to see maybe a more aggressive warrior, but with a majority of the options picked out with Diablo and Stitches, great bans here by Minnesota now that their draft is starting to show up here. Because you want to be able to get on Lunara and Sylvanas as soon as possible. If you can get to the back line and break them down, you're able to pressure on them. Their damage diminishes heavily. But a Nubarak being the only pickup here for East Carolina, I'll interested to see how that works out. Jaina, the 5th hero here for Keybuild Brightwing, and Karazine will be the final pickup from Minnesota.
I thought maybe we were going to see a Sonya from them to go along with the Anubarak, but Oddish is going to be on the Jaina, and we'll have to see if maybe we're going to see the Devouring Maw Ring of Frost combo come out from them.
No, it honestly would have been pretty cool to see Sonya and a Nubarak as like a double melee bruiser and try and get in the action. But Sonya as like a solo tank, I think it would have been so hard against Lunara, Sylvanas, and Thrall. But we could have seen what would happen there. But I think, it could have happened. Jaina, though, will be the pickup for East Carolina. And you're right, we're probably going to see that combo, that Devouring Maw into the Ring of Frost. The problem is that today that we've seen it, that timing is actually very particular. You got to make sure you're on top of that and make sure to count it down. If you miss that combo, it can be devastating for your team, so they got to make sure that they're in line with their engagements.
Well, we've talked a little bit about East Carolina. Let's move over to Minnesota and take a look at Subnova. Subnova is really the key, the captain to this team, and also is, like I've said before, the most mechanically skilled player they feel on the team. We've seen a lot of Li Ming play come out, and all of these assassins just trying to be very aggressive and be able to throw out a lot of damage.
Yeah, I'm going to wonder if we're going to see Subnova actually on Lunara there. Minnesota, though, will be showing their support here. Soybean.
What is that picture?
He's getting that milk, man. Putting it down. You got to get that calcium for strong bones so you can play Heroes of the Storm. But yeah, he normally loves Brightwing, but he's not picking up Karazine. His win rate is now 1-1 with that hero, but Karazine is his choice here, and he played all right there. He had some pretty solid Divine Palms. I feel like there wasn't a player in the last game that lost the game for Minnesota. I feel like as a team, they just didn't play correctly around what was going on. And to be fair, that could be because the entire play from the other team was just a little bit too weird, a little bit too crazy. You got to have a lot of patience against that comp. So it felt like they were thrown off a little bit. So going into game number 2, make sure not to get thrown off and make sure to spread out, especially against this team when they know how to swarm on top of you.
And two, looking at the bans that they had specifically on those warriors, it makes me think maybe that they know how to deal with that strategy of an Uberak, which is really good considering the fact that we don't see him a lot. And so that really could throw off a team just dealing with a hero that you haven't dealt with before or in a very long time. And by the way, we can also take a look at Murzik from this team, as Murzik has been the Sylvanas player, very strong, with an interesting Black Arrows build that has worked out for them, especially when you pair with Lunara.
Yeah, it's a very different build. It's not one that you expect from a Sylvanas player, but if you can catch an opposing team unaware of it, they could actually be slowed down pretty heavily there. We were seeing it with Stitches. We saw the dagger always hitting the target that was actually hooked by Stitches, and then he would bring back the Black Poison arrow all the way to the opposing team and slow everyone down. Unfortunately, they just had no follow-up ever, and it never really worked out for them in game number 1. But going into game number 2, they have more tools to actually get into the engage. They have Lunara here that can actually benefit from that slow as well, so we'll see if it pays off for them.
Well, we'll see right now as we're heading into Sky Temple with East Carolina in the blue, up 1-0 in this best of 3. Oddish playing Jaina, Demore playing Falstad. We've got Gare Bear once again on a Nubarak, Dirty Harry on Rhaegar, and finally Red Angel playing his love, Zagara.
All right, Minnesota potentially in the last game of their tournament. If they can't pull this one out, it's going to be Subnova, Gonzo, Prey, Soybean, and Merzik all showing up here down in the bottom right. They could go for a really quick turret rush on the bottom left corner. We've seen a lot of teams pull that off, and actually with East Carolina in the top left corner, they could equally push pretty much equally as heavily, having the Zagara available with the Roaches and the Hydra just bringing the aggression. So we might see some turret trades here.
Yeah, especially since as soon as they see Minnesota move in toward that bottom lane, I think we'll likely just see them try to do the playing chicken, where you're just moving in. Unfortunately for them, though, that trade, that playing chicken, is always going to favor the team with Sylvanas.
East Carolina took a little bit too long there to decide what they wanted to do. You could probably assume that they were in communications. What do we do here? And at that point, the moment you're saying, what do we do here, you're already losing that battle. 2 turrets taken out immediately here from Minnesota. That will give them a slight experience lead. East Carolina will now spread out as normal for the map.
Well, with that lead, you guys can let us know if you think that Minnesota can bring it back in this match, or if East Carolina have it in the bag to move on to the Epic 8. Tweet hashtag Heroes of the Dorm. Use the hashtag of the team you think will win the match.
All right, so looking into it. You know, Gilly, I'm going to question you. Who do you think's going to take out this match, game number 2?
Well, I always have to favor the Sylvanas on Battlegrounds, where actually Falstout's going to go down too.
Oh,
So
wow.
even
Thrall
with that,
got that kill.
yeah, they're going to be able to take out a member of East Carolina. But whenever you have a team composition that's so good at taking out structures on a Battleground where structures are your team's health,
Yeah.
because it directly impacts it, I'm going to give the edge to Minnesota here.
All right, we'll see if Minnesota and that edge can work out for them. And we already have a nice lead for them. They got the experience lead. They got a kill on Falso in the bottom left. All signs point to yes, and the question of whether or not they can take this game. The creep, though, is starting to spread out pretty heavily here in this top map. Usually you see it in the bottom part of the battleground, but we have Zagara on the top lane just putting creep everywhere here as they try to kind of swarm down here in the bottom middle here and try and get a few shots stolen away from Minnesota.
Also, that unfair advantage overwhelming affliction combination is not something teams ever run into.
It can be deadly.
Yeah, this is very specific to Minnesota. So if East Carolina aren't aware of this, if they haven't really been preparing for the team, it's something that could catch them off guard.
Luckily, they do have a solid support that can deal with that pretty well.
Yes.
The chain healing from Dirty Harry and the Ancestral for the clutch moments will be helpful, but it is still one support against a heavy damage composition. Now, the middle of the map is going to be grabbed here by East Carolina. We're going to need Falset to probably start rotating towards the bottom as Thrall has decided to go ahead and push him to the bottom lane. Merzik, though, taking damage from the minions himself here, trying to maybe grab a little bit more, but with the entire rotation here of East Carolina, they will have to forfeit that for just a little bit here.
Yeah, it's always demoralizing to die to a Temple Guardian or to some minions, so it's never something they want to happen so early in the game. They're still getting into a fight over the top of this, but I think it's likely that we're going to see East Carolina, yeah, they're going to grab the last 5 shots to throw down some damage onto the structures, but still with the towers down at bottom, this is a really good position specifically for Minnesota. If they're able to get a lot of that temple in the bottom in the next phase, then they're going to be able to get the first 4 of the game.
Looking at the builds here by East Carolina, by the way, they're going for heavy poke with the Q build here for Jaina, Q build for Falstad as well, and then the auto tech and venom spines here for Zagara. It looks like they want to try and wear down their opponents and try and put a lot of pressure on Karazim with that healing, but with Thrall being able to heal himself, I think it's going to be a little bit on the harder side to actually make this poke comp work out so well.
A lot of tweets voting for Minnesota to come back into this series. I mean, I wouldn't mind a game number 3.
I always love a game 3. It
Yeah.
really, I think game 3 is where it's all out on the table.
Oh, yeah.
It's do or die for both teams. You can see the aggression that comes out. Because right now, East Carolina could be hiding strats for tomorrow's game if they were to make it through and go against Arizona State. So they might be sandbagging a little bit, if you will.
Yeah.
So game number 3 forces both teams to bring their A game.
Right, and that is, of course, a great for whomever they would be waiting for them in the wings. We don't know who will be up against these guys, whoever team wins, but still it's a lot more games. It's one extra game, one extra composition that you can see for your opponents.
All right, well, in terms of experience, both teams are getting very close to 7. Both teams are also grabbing their knights right now as they're preparing for the second shrine that'll be spawning really soon here. The Wisp from Lenara will scout this out. In fact, the opposing team just leaves it there forever.
Hello.
Finally gets rid of it, but that will be pressure in the top lane for our East Carolina, and we're going to have Muzik going to go ahead and wait here for a second as he waits for his team to get ready for the shrines in the bottom right, as they're also flanking down there looking to get a pick off on Red Angel here, the Zagara player.
They have a couple of members up up in the top. They may leave them there momentarily. Yeah, they're going to leave Sylvanas because she can clear out very fast, especially with unstable poison. And that means that their bruisers will be the ones pushing onto the fort of East Carolina, and then they can give up a few of the shots while East Carolina is down in the bottom, but they can't give up kills here because East Carolina are going in, trying to take one out. The Impale does stun a few, but Minnesota do get away.
Quick reaction there from the Sylvanas being in the top lane. You saw Oddish immediately move in and land a Blizzard on a couple of members and force that fight. Now, it looks like because of Lunara's aggressive play from there on Demore, we saw a lot more damage go down on Falstad, but with the well tap, we're going to see Minnesota start to move in. Sylvanas is moving on our way down here, and the team needs to wait. They need to wait for Sylvanas. They don't want to go for an engagement here and potentially lose a member before Sylvanas shows up in the fight. Right,
they've taken out so many structures already that they can go ahead and get in on some of these later shots, and in fact, they've caught Red Angel in a tough spot. Prey going in, but the body blocks from the team trying to keep him alive, and Gonzo will be the first to fall. Can they get Red Angel to tie it up?
Red Angel still alive, finally be taken down, but the Blizzards were huge here from Oddish, but finally through sheer willpower, they're going to break down everyone. Demore low on HP as well, running down to the bottom right. Will he try to fly away? It looks like he will not be able to, as Subnova will finish off the kill, and Minnesota getting one of the biggest victories they could definitely need in game number 2.
A team wipe. Merzik once again struggles 0-2 to these Temple Guardians. But her teammates
Temple Guardians OP, a little bit too strong.
A little strong. The rest of the members are going to be able to help get the last shots out of this. They should still be able to help push down the fort too, as it's very, very low, and they have the Sylvanas. They also have grabbed their heroic abilities over East Carolina, and Leaping Strike!
Leaping Strike picked up on Lunara. Wow, the engagement will be huge here. If she can get on top of Jaina, Falstad here, or even Rhaegar and put so much damage to them so quickly, they can get rid of people very, very fast, especially with the Wailing Arrow Science to prevent that ancestral healing from occurring. So I like the Leaping Strike. It's a bold pick, but it's one that could really pay off for this team, and it's one that I like to see.
That's an 80% slow.
80% slow.
Yeah, that's if you're going to want to get away from Thrall, good luck.
Yeah,
with Lunara laughing maniacally as she jumps over you.
All right, well, level 10 now hitting for East Carolina. What will be the choices for them here, as they are going to be picking up their own heroics? We have Ancestral Healing, Mighty Gust, the Ring of Frost that you were calling out earlier, Devouring Maul, and the Cocoon. So they do have some wombo combo potential. They do have some isolation potential as well. Bear coming in here. Thrall in trouble, burrowed in. Sundering could be burned here by Thrall if he wants to turn around. There it is. The Ring of Frost does hit 2 members. Merzik in trouble, will be able to run away though, and it's a couple trades here and there.
The key for that and staying alive was a really good sundering from Gonzo.
Yeah.
The fact that the Ring of Frost came out, and this was the time for East Carolina to collapse onto them, but the sundering threw them off long enough to wait out that Ring of Frost timing so they could all be back into position. And they've also baited out the Ancestral Heal.
Yeah, I like the patience there from the sundering as well. Thrall was caught immediately by the entire team, but you saw him start to retreat, and waited until that Ring of Frost came out that rooted him, because you can still cast abilities while you're rooted, and then turn around to the sundering. So Gilly is right there. That was a really good play by Thrall.
With the length of time that happens in the fights on the temples, I'm almost wondering, do you like the Locust Swarm better in this case over the Cocoon?
Locust Swarm can be a little bit helpful because you can get in there and get the engagements in, but it's an interesting choice here because we have a Q poke build coming from Jaina and Falstad, which means they're trying to isolate targets and take them out quickly and trying to prevent the heal from potentially Kerosene coming with the Divine Palm. So Cocoon kind of helps out with that a little bit. Locust Swarm as a solo warrior isn't really that much healing. It's actually very, very hard with the low health ball. I mean, it could have been a little bit better, but I think I like the Cocoon pick a little bit better here.
Still will just be key on who they're able to hit with that Cocoon. Well, we can check out a replay and see how the fights have been going between these two teams. I wanted to point out, too, that Lunara also has Splintered Spear at level 7. When you hit that Noxious Blossom, her next basic attack hits 3 people. It hits 3 different people. So once they have the slows, once they have the unfair advantage for all of that, you could just see all of the poison damage that's being thrown out, and that's only going to get more difficult to deal with for East Carolina as we get into the later game.
That's a bold maneuver because Lunara has to get a little bit closer to really get that in there and get those 3 attacks in. And if you're not in the full range, it actually won't hit the people if they're not close in range as well. So you actually have to work in those auto attacks as Lunara. But if you get it in there, you can see the payoff as we saw in that team fight. You can really poison everyone down, get the crippling spores to really just kind of melt them away as well. So I like the pick. It is aggressive, but hey, she's going full all in, man. She's getting the auto attacks in and she's getting Leaping Strike. Lunara means business this game.
Yeah, and once you get Starwood Spear, it'll be a little bit easier as using Crippling Spores will give you that 50% basic attack range, so it won't be as scary for her to try to get in there and get the basic attacks down. But so far, this has been much different for Minnesota, and I think it comes down to that Sylvanas Lunara having that, knowing that that is such a strong composition and that it's something very unique to them specifically.
So I'm going to be watching the entire East Carolina here trying to get this wombo combo, this Devouring Maul, this Ring of Frost. I'm going to see how they're going to get that happening here because they have heroes on the opposing team that are so mobile. They can really just get out of that combo, and especially if they just do a thing that is very, very rudimentary, sit back, spread out, and never get mauled, it's going to be hard for them to actually hit that and actually land it. So it's going to be such a hard struggle. Now, the good news for them is that the temples do spawn in areas that do force the opponents to walk into that area, which could force them to group up a little bit. So we're probably going to see that combo around the temples if we ever do see it.
Right. It's going to come down to those big fights. Well, guys, we are just having some technical difficulties. We'll be back as soon as we can, but it's just such an important game. They're all important games. They want to make sure that everything is perfect for them in this condition. Knowing when you're playing for tuition, it's really important that you have everything set up and that you're very comfortable with your playing style.
I mean, I do want to note, though, going into game number 2, Minnesota does seem to be a little bit more comfortable, though, overall in the game. In game number 1, they seem to be a little bit rattled, and to be fair, who wouldn't be against that comp, especially if it was a best-of-1 series? That would have really been unfortunate for them. But a best-of-3 allows for them to come into game number 2, get a footing down, get a feel for their opponents like they did in game number 1 and play safer. And so far, they've been doing that. In fact, they've been playing so safe that they're able to get a little bit more aggressive here and there and starting to work in those auto attacks. Now, I want to see East Carolina, a team that has been dominating this entire tournament, how they react to being behind, because they're getting picked left and right here.
The first time I've seen this happen to East Carolina was actually game number 2 versus Toronto.
Yeah.
And that was the first time. They still 2-0'd Toronto. So it's something that they are able to adapt to and come back in the game. But you can't get too far behind on Sky Temple, because even if you're able to start to come back in the very late game, if you're just so far behind in structures that you're forced into difficult situations because you are trying to fight everywhere at once, you're trying to get onto all of the temples, your opponents can totally take advantage of that.
It's a huge uphill battle. You have waves pushing into, which are again a pain in the rear to deal with if you don't have the wave clear. Luckily, they do have the wave clear, but you have to deal with the minions, and then you have to find the aggressive engagement that works out for you, and then you actually have to take the temple back. You have to have sustain, and you have to have good team fights for that to happen. So falling behind, as Gilly mentioned, can really, really be painful on Sky Temple.
Well, guys, we are still just dealing with our technical delays. So while we make sure that these teams are ready to go, we're going to check out some of the highlights of the games that have been happening, that happened last weekend.
First up, Carleton versus UT Dallas. This is game 2 on Towers of Doom. Muradin caught in a Devouring Maw, but erupts with the support of a Divine Shield from Uther. But Carleton comes back with one of the craziest finishes of the weekend, getting the final points of core damage out of this bot lane Merc camp. Wild stuff. Carleton goes on to take the series over Dallas 2-1. Next, Arizona State versus Laval. 10% of all completed brackets predicting ASU to take the entire tournament. Game 1 on Cursed Hollow was an absolute pixel bath, as we see Arizona State starting to get the upper hand with the victory. Then, check out this gust into Void Prison on Battlefield of Eternity. ASU advances over Laval 2-0. UC Irvine versus University of Illinois. Game 2, we saw great team fighting out of Irvine, and unfortunately some mistakes out of Illinois, like these aggressive Falstad flies from Unlimited, even the attempt to save with the ETC mosh pit, but the dance simply isn't enough. UC Irvine moves on to the round of 16 with a 2-1 victory over one of last year's Heroic Four. Boston College versus Western Washington. Game 2 on Sky Temple. Boston College with a nice sundering, able to secure a few corner takedowns, followed up by a Devouring Maw on Washington's Kerosene. Another dominant 2-0 series for BC, as they prove year over year that they are a force to be reckoned with. Next, University of Connecticut versus Indiana. Battlefield of Eternity. Dan Lee for 3, able to snag the raw 4-man mosh pit deep into enemy territory. Nothing but simple cleanup to follow. Here's another cool combo from earlier in that game. Chiruno with the Maw, followed up by the mosh pit. Mwah! The Tricky Turtles continue to impress, taking the series 2-0. They will advance to the round of 16. Utah versus Johns Hopkins. Game 2, a nice hook on Zagara, but countered with the Devouring Maw. Can you feel it? That's joy coming from Li Ming as she fires everything. These takedowns opening up a window of opportunity for Johns Hopkins to snag the late game Dragon Knight and push straight into Utah's core. Nice attempt to counter by Utah, but it won't be enough. Johns Hopkins takes the win with a 2-0. Toronto versus East Carolina. Toronto moves in for the boss defense. Is it a trap? Looks like it. ECU shows nothing but poise and anticipation as they counter, taking out hero after hero. I gotta say, ECU is turning some heads. Oddish and crew are looking so strong with their solid game sense and mechanical skill. Can't wait to see more as they move on to the round of 16. Texas Tech versus Washington University. Game 3 on Sky Temple. Texas Tech trying to get value out of Azul's Poison Nova after using every other tool in their kit. But Washington University will have none of it, continuing to aggressively push forward. Smart game sense out of Ice Shiny to reposition for the surprising flank. He'll mop up this team fight and snag the contested series with a 2-1 victory. Tennessee versus Buffalo. UT experienced the pressure of Buffalo late into Game 1 on Cursed Hollow, but have no fear. The crew from Tennessee managed to buckle down and fight back in this competitive 3-game series by chipping away at the divided resources of Buffalo and eventually taking the series 2-1. Georgia Tech versus Minnesota. Game 1 on Cursed Hollow. Gonzo's Thrall is in trouble, but this clutch Sundering Divine Palm combo completely turns this fight around. Minnesota showing that they know how to play the patient, reactive game. The 6th seed from the north knocks out the 3rd seed from the south and moves on with a 2-0 win. Last but certainly not least, UT Arlington versus UCLA. UTA uses Shadow Stalk for the disengage, followed up by this disruptive Mighty Gust. It is never good to have your teams sitting on top of one another, and UTA capitalizes with UCLA on the run, focusing down target after target. The dart blazes harrowing and moves on, taking the series 2-0.
A lot of great games last weekend, and we're starting off this weekend with more. And good news, everyone! We are ready to head back into game number 2 between Minnesota and East Carolina.
All right, let's do it. Now, remember, we are currently in the mid-game. We just had a huge team fight. The unpause. We'll see Thrall fall immediately here, though, and we do see the engage from East Carolina as they will drop the Devouring Maw. Members are being picked off. Subnova in trouble as well. Will retreat. Red Angel going to be getting in the aggression as well. Divine Palm will save Soybean for the time being. A good Radiant Dash will help out as well, but 2 members were taken out in that fight for Minnesota. Actually, just one as Sylvanas was able to treat in the bottom left.
Yeah, so the Devouring Maw pulled somebody in, and I think they were trying to push them back with the Mighty Gust, but the synergy was just a little bit off. Can often come in after a big break like that where you're just a little bit rattled, especially when you have to come right back into the fight. But still, great job by East Carolina being able to at least pick one member of Minnesota off and try to come back and experience.
All right, well, the Shrines are back now. And the good news for Minnesota is their heroics will be up a little bit quicker than the Devouring Maw that we just saw for Zagara being used. But there is still a Cocoon available, which means a 5v4 can still be strong. And if you don't have heroics, you do have the auto attacks and you have a number advantage. So East Carolina can take this middle Shrine pretty well. The bottom Shrine is being grabbed by Sylvanas as she's dealing with that Shrine getting the aggression on the middle fort. And so it looks like both will trade here as Falstad is now pushing in the top lane against Olenara.
Structurally, we have a definite lead for Minnesota. They're taking down the final four for East Carolina. But if they could start to win some of these team fights, they can come back and experience. But it's getting to the point where because so many structures have been taken down, Minnesota is going to start to get those big talent tier advantages.
There's actually aggression happening here in the middle lane here as Jaina was actually hopped on to by Gonzo. Gonzo, though, will be forced to retreat as Dirty Harry showed up with the heals and made Gonzo retreat. Oddish trying to poke him down and slow down these members. And you can see that Q build. If they are landing shots, it becomes very difficult for Minnesota to deal with.
I hear a ha-ha-ha, which means leaping strikes happening from Subnova, and Demore has so much poison damage on him, and the boss is going after him too.
The boss did like 30% of that damage, but a huge sundering from Gonzo. Unfortunately, no follow-up here. Prey trying to chase down here, wants to hit a Stormbolt just to barely barely out of range there. Nice cue from Anash will make him slow down just enough for Zagara to retreat. But a lot of blows were exchanged in that fight, and neither team actually secured a takedown.
That's the point that Minnesota really wants to get into a fight, down a level advantage. But when I was talking to you about when East Carolina were up against Toronto, they won a really big team fight, 19-20.
Really?
So they were down that very important talent tier where you get the Storm talents, and still they can recognize when they're able to fight even being down a deficit in talents.
I'm really getting the sense here that East Carolina thrives on the surprise factor. They
Yes.
show up in scenarios that would throw off their opponents. They bring weird team competitions. They fight when they're down a talent, which would be ill-advised for a standard team. But East Carolina is showing up saying, hey, we're a little bit weird, we're a little bit different, and we're going to take down our opponents without caring what you think at home.
Right, one of their strengths that I've always noticed, even back into the group stage, was their ability to control rotations. They're very good at rotating for picks as well as mercenary camps. And from that, they've been able to catch a couple of people out, but also make sure that they aren't just allowing Minnesota to paint the battleground red.
Both teams trying to grab map pressure here. The only major thing that could be contested is the boss in the middle. Minnesota, though, has that covered. They put a wisp down there in the bottom right corner, so East Carolina would be ill-advised to grab that. They instead decide to go ahead and push the bottom here. I like the safer play. Would have liked to see maybe a creep tour in that bush right above them so they could see a gank if it does come down, but luckily Minnesota is exposing himself in the middle there as they're actually clearing minion waves.
This is the big fight point for Minnesota. They've picked up unfair advantage, and they do have overwhelming affliction now. They're still a level ahead, and by taking out towers, they've furthered that to just in time for a temple to activate.
All right, aggression in the middle here as they're taking down a turret, moving towards that level 16, just rotating, trying to stay away from East Carolina here as they would love to get the down build, but a cocoon will force the team to turn around here. Karazim tries to melt down that web blast there. Pro is going to be forced away there. Sundering is huge, hitting 4 people. Lenara's toxin spreading on everyone here. One member falls, Jaina, and now a Nubrak. The leaping strike from Subnova will get Demore pretty weak, and we see everything just spreading. The poisons, the dagger from Sylvanas just melting the opposing team.
Minnesota was able to avoid the Devouring Maw, and that was everything. And that was the point where East Carolina wanted to fight. They needed to get into a fight before Minnesota grabbed 16, but they unfortunately lost 2 members in that. So not really very much of a defense at this keep, and with Sylvanas, Minnesota can totally just take this keep for free. That's a big win off of that fight.
A huge win. A lot of pressure will be coming down that mid lane. And on a map like Sky Temple, you don't want to be having the front of your base being assaulted like that, but that will be occurring here for East Carolina. And we do see Minnesota moving down to the boss, setting up a wisp, trying to grab the map pressure. They need to deal with the giants that are in the very far bottom right, but now they have a temple here for the taking.
Going to start to take out the temple, send Sylvanas back. She can clear those up very quickly. East Carolina, they want to get right back into the action. They want to find somebody out of position and go for a fight. They don't have 16 yet, though, so they need to be really careful about how they do this. But they do have a lot of potential to zone people out, both with Cocoon and with Devouring Maw. They don't have Maw for 40 more seconds, though, so it's really just relying if they could maybe see somebody with the Cocoon. Not having Devouring Maw, they might have been able to fight without 16, but not without having that.
Yeah, you got to make sure that you have some advantages somewhere. Not having Devouring Maw and being at level 15 makes it very, very difficult. Sylvanas finally shows up here from Minnesota, so they'll go ahead and start taking down that temple down the bottom right corner. And at the point for East Carolina, the name of the game here is Soak. They're actually going to move towards level 16 and get those talents that are ever so important for them, especially as they're waiting for Devouring Maw, which now procs in 8 seconds.
So 8 seconds left until Maw. They have 16. They've picked up those talents, and they can look to find somebody. Burrow Charge has to get a Nubarak out of the fight, throws out Impale, just trying to slow down the members and tell everyone from East Carolina to get here, but they have a Cocoon down. If they can make this happen, Tim, a Blizzard hits a couple of members, forces Prey to have to use Avatar to stay in the game, and a big Sundering will hit so many members of East Carolina.
This is a 4v5 for Minnesota, by the way, and now Karazim showing up, could save Subnova. Can he do it? No, Subnova will get poked off, but that was a 4v5, and Minnesota turned it around, and a majority of the reason why that occurred there is because Gonzo hit a solid Sundering there, knocking 4 people away. Gare is trying to retreat here, but even then, what's he going to do against this comp that's pushing down the front lane here? The keep now in trouble, because remember, Sylvanas is the key player.
Right. Gonzo, his most played hero is Thrall, and we can see why. The Sunderings have been very on point for this team, and yeah, Merzik, his most played is Sylvanas. It's one of his favorites, and now with that, they've taken down yet another keep in a situation it's only 14 minutes in.
Yeah, here it is right here. You see the engage, the 5v4 here for East Carolina, and they're right at disadvantage, but Gonzo turns that advantage against them there as he slams a couple of members into the wall with the Sundering. Demore in trouble, Somnova trying to read the top right corner, and we're going to see Falsa take that out, but he's going to pay for his life as well as Dirty Harry. Gerber, the only one to get away from that entire fight. Decisive, clean team fighting from Minnesota.
Yep, they are taking every advantage they can too. They've stolen some Giants on one side. They're grabbing them on their own. Meanwhile, other members going up to the top 2 just to continue to push that out, really making East Carolina just play their game, respond and react to whatever Minnesota is able to pick up.
Okay, so as we're in the late game, East Carolina is hurting, but they're still in the game. Minnesota has all of their keeps here and moving towards 20, grabbing those knights, as Gilly was mentioning earlier, and now with 2 of the temples activating, one in the middle, one on the top, and the boss on the battleground, East Carolina has a lot of objectives they have to manage here, and it looks like they're going to go straight for the boss, immediately deciding on it once they clear the bottom lane, and getting this boss will be helpful, but will it be enough to get them back into the game?
So this is the time where they definitely should be getting into a fight because they're at the same talent tier, but they picked up the boss, so maybe if they can get into that fight and be able to get a couple of people down, and the boss will push freely and they can take out a keep. But they've got to hurry and get there fast because in only half a level, Minnesota will have their Storm talents.
Very true. At the same time, though, Minnesota does have the top mercenaries and the bottom mercenaries pushing into East Carolina, so we are on a ticker here for both teams as the boss pushing the bottom right corner. Gerber trying to take the damage here from Murden. Subnova on the bottom right, flanking around, looking for some form of engagement. Both heroics, or actually all heroics, are up here for the teams. Demore and Oddish really trying to poke where they can, but Prey trying to get engagement. Nice Storm Bolt, and we do see this huge fight occurring over this temple.
I want to see a better Maw come out from Red Angel. I know that he's able to do it. Red Angel loves playing the Zagara, but the spread from Minnesota has been very impressive so far. And look, that timing that East Carolina had to make something happen. Now we're about to have 20. Can they make it right here?
Oh my gosh, the 3 auto attacks there from Lunara will be nice there as 3 members are melted. The Leaping Stroke. There goes the Devouring Maw. That was helpful, but you can see that East Carolina had to force that fight. Let's go look at their base really quickly here as mercenaries are just pushing into the core, about to apply pressure, and this could be game. In fact, I would call this game. Minnesota needs to mount up and push across the map.
I am so impressed with Minnesota. They can also just take both of the temples. They're already working on that. The mercenaries have been able to help take down the shields. Gonzo is right in the thick of things, and there Lunara leaping over the core. Minnesota bring it back, and we're going to game number 3.
Minnesota showing up with some spirit and a little bit of fight there. I like it. We're going into game number 3, and this is it. Whoever wins next game is going to the Epic 8. Both teams need to bring their A game.
And importantly, you said that this is a battleground that East Carolina feels very happy on.
Yeah,
they feel confident there. So I'm sure going into it, seeing that that was the pick for Minnesota, they're thinking, yeah, that's fine. We'll still be able to win here. So I'm wondering how the mindset is for that team at this point.
Gotta agree with that. And you gotta wonder also with East Carolina, are they putting a little bit too much into the Nubrek here? They're banning out warriors as well, trying to kind of put their opponents into a situation where they have to pick a warrior earlier in the draft so they can kind of win out on the other heroes, and they just pick up a Nubrek. But it's getting to a point where it might just be hurting them just a tad bit. They don't have a lot of health available to be losing, and when you see heroes like a Nubrek going down to half health and almost getting picked apart, the squishies suddenly become available to pick up, and Lunara just does so well in that scenario.
Now we're going to take a look at some of the key plays that happened. Even with that very early team fight, we could tell that Minnesota was feeling really good. They had this composition that is very uniquely theirs with the Sylvanas and the Lunara, and the Sylvanas build specifically that makes it so. And yeah, a couple of Maws that were really crucial that could have helped the team got missed there, and even toward the end when they did get a good Maw, the rest of the team couldn't be there to help out. They had been completely taken apart.
Minnesota was spreading out a lot. They're really missing those Maws. If those Maws aren't hitting, maybe you let her go to the draft again, right? Red Angel, unfortunately, was just not able to get into a scenario where he can make them all work out for his team, which is so important and crucial. You got to hit that huge heroic. It's very, very important to a lot of teams, especially when you get a Jaina that has that Ring of Frost that we saw. They were trying to hit that combo whenever possible, but it was never available. You saw them spending heroics just to survive in most scenarios.
Well, guys, I am so excited because we are at the ace match. Whatever team wins here will be able to go to the Epic 8. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll find out who that will be. Welcome back, friends, to the Heroes of the Dorm Super 16. We're ready for the ace match between East Carolina and Minnesota. And I have to say, I'm a little worried for East Carolina now.
I think I'm with you on that. They really kind of got outplayed that entire game there. One, even think about it, they may have gotten outdrafted. We believe they're putting a little bit too much into Nuback there, and it's okay if Lunara isn't available. Lunara just puts out so much damage so much quickly to heroes that are spread into one area, especially with the build that we saw from that particular Lunara, and we just saw them take them apart so quickly. And at the same time, you gave Gonzo one of the best heroes that he's great at. Thrall. The Sun Rings were killer. They were so destructive, and they were so patient, and they were at a point where nearly every time they hit 3 to 4 heroes.
That
kills people. Wow, Gonzo is he's buff, man. Look at that, bringing out the backwards hat. Nice job, man.
And the blue steel as well. But
yeah, the blue steel. Love it.
Yeah, just the fact that Minnesota got a composition and got heroes that they are so comfortable on, and that we saw in the round of 32 from this team.
Yeah.
They were just let through. And when we talked to Oddish, she said that they were way more focused on making sure that they were ready for Tomb of the Spider Queen, but it's not just one game that you have to win in this best of 3. You've got to get 2. And so now Minnesota have all the momentum going in, but I hear our draft is ready, so let's see how we're going to see East Carolina shake it up in game number 3.
So we're halfway through the draft already. Game number 3, it will be on Battlefield of Eternity. Remember, this is a 2-lane map, and this is East Carolina's pick. This is actually a battleground that they wanted to go to. They wanted to mix it up if they could. They enjoy different battlegrounds that aren't standard, in quotation marks. Towers of Doom and Battlefield of Eternity. So going into game number 3, they're pulling that out here. Greymane, Diablo, and Karazim will be the pick here. Diablo is a warrior that gives them a better engage. In fact, Diablo is a hero that they love to play often.
Yes.
So, seeing Diablo pick up is a good sign if you're a fan of this team.
Yeah, I think they were realizing that it was Gare Bear that they were targeting, that Minnesota was targeting. But I like that Minnesota still did prioritize banning out Tyrande, because Tyrande is so important to a team, being able to just burn through the health bar of the Immortals. So they've taken that out. That won't be a possibility for East Carolina.
So they ban out Oddish's Tyrande, and they also take away the strength that Tyrande has naturally on the map. A great 2-for-1 ban, I would say, actually, in that regard. So we have Li Ming, Muradin, Thrall, and Brightwing for Minnesota here. Got a pretty solid comp, and Zagara is the last pick. I'm surprised she got this far out of the entire draft here. She's another hero that's very, very powerful on this map. We've seen it multiple times. East Carolina getting Vala here, and Vala is actually a hero that we've seen a lot.
Oh, snaps!
There's the Stitches. It's happening.
All right, so both of these teams have compositions they like.
Yeah.
We have Brightwing. That's Soybean's favorite hero, and we've seen Soybean make the plays on Karazim, so I'm ready to see some Fairy Dragon action there. They also, once again, have Thrall, and they've got Li Ming and Muradin and Zagara even, so they've got good damage for the Immortal and good damage in team fights. But similarly, East Carolina now has Diablo Stitches. That's something we've seen before from them too.
Yeah, the Stitches play from Oddish is one that was such a highlight for us last week in the round of 32. Now, Vala and Diablo being picked up as well will allow them a lot of control, especially here in the middle of the map, and I can't wait to see what will be occurring for our teams, because you're right, both of them got the teams they want, and except for probably Lunara. Lunara was so strong in game number 2, really spreading the damage. You could just tell that East Carolina didn't know quite how to handle it, so I like that second ban there as well.
Right, but Subnova, if they're not going to have Lunara, I think Subnova is completely happy with having Li Ming too. Yeah. If they can really start to get a roll with those critical mass, getting the resets of the abilities to start taking down the members one by one, then they can go back and pick up the battleground objective and push in on the structures.
Yeah, he's pretty comfortable on Li Ming. I would like to see maybe a little bit more aggression compared to what we saw in game number 1. To be honest, they were pretty far behind at the time, and we're kind of getting picked apart. But in game number 3, Battlefield of Eternity, around that Immortal phase, you have a lot of open space, and you got to own that space as Li Ming. Get in there and cause a disruption that you know that she's so strong for.
Yeah, it's also a battleground where you have to be very careful, because there is like this sweet spot. If you're able to get, it's around the second Immortal, if you pick that up, have your heroics for a long time over your opponents too, there's the potential that we've seen teams just win the game off of that. Yeah. So if that's something that East Carolina is going for, I'm hoping that Minnesota is aware of that, because I've seen them win with that before.
Yeah, at that point too, with them having double warrior, they would have the engagement necessary to do that. So you're right. We're going to need to see Minnesota be aware of that strategy and make sure they don't fall trap to it.
Yeah, especially to all the picks that they have the potential to bring to the game. With Stitches, we see them do the Stitches, the hook, often into the overpower too, and it's just someone who is pulled away from the team for so long that they never can recover. They can never get back.
Yeah, Diablo actually works here too. If there is a hook that happens, Diablo can actually push people back away too. They can get the
Yes.
engage and help them out, but Diablo is a little more versatile here. It's also a hero that we've seen Gerbear just really be confident on. And it's good to get your weakest player on a hero that is very, very strong, very, very comfortable on a hero that they enjoy playing and they excel at. So we'll see how he'll work with the Diablo here. Apocalypse, a Lightning Breath could be a pickup here as well. Actually kind of enjoy Lightning Breath, especially with the Citrus comp. You can use it to actually zone out one because he becomes unstoppable, and it forces out a Devouring Maul from Zagara. And if you use Devouring Maul on one player, that's actually a win for a team.
Right. Well, we're going to see which heroic Diablo picks as we are ready for game number 3 on Battlefield of Eternity.
All right, East Carolina, the far left. This will be the ace match for our teams. Whoever wins will go on to the Epic 8. Whoever loses will go home. Oddish, Damore, Dirty Harry, Gerbear, and Red Angel for the roster of East Carolina.
And for Minnesota in red, they've got all the momentum coming in after that last win. We're going to have Subnova, Gonzo, Soybean, Prey, and Murzik.
So looking at it here, Murzik will immediately want to get out to the middle of the map here and spread that creep. We should be seeing some aggression as well matched here from East Carolina. If they would like to, they can group up. However, they have split up, which leads me to believe that they feel stronger in the mid game. They're going to go ahead and grab it, go to the lanes, and make sure not to have any deaths here. So a little bit more passive. Bit different from East Carolina, but I like the shakeup.
Yeah, I love that they're escorting Zagara around to start allowing the creep to spread. But guys, don't forget, we've got a poll, and this is such an important game as it is the final one. Whoever gets this moves on to Epic 8. So let us know who you think will be moving on. We've got the hashtag Heroes of the Dorm, and use the hashtag of the team. Who's going to get the victory?
Get your votes in. Gilly, I asked you in game number 2, but we're in game number 3 now. Who takes it? Who does it?
I think that East Carolina will be able to bring it back, but it's going to rely on if they're able to get the hooks and pick the members of Minnesota apart. If they can't get those, then they're going to start to fall behind. And I think also they're going to get really demoralized.
The engagements will be key, as Minnesota does have a lot of poking, so you're right, those hooks are going to have to be key here for East Carolina. I think I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with East Carolina as well. So we have 4-on-4 in the top lane. Oddish already sending out a couple of hooks to warn her opponents that she will go for them if possible. You see them hiding behind those minions there, so that hook will never hit on Murzik or Gonzo, who are our primary targets. Murzik a little bit too far away. And the bottom lane, Brightwing's entire job here is not to die to Greymane and get as much experience as possible.
Yep, they're looking at having the lanes pushed, having as much experience as they can before they get into the first Immortal phase. Especially because this comes even before either team can get level 4. We'll see them often send people back into the lanes to pick up those wave of minions because the fight around the first Immortal phase takes so long. Those things have a ton of health.
That they do. And really for East Carolina, they don't have the best comp at burning down Immortals. Greymane and Ball is great here, but their warriors don't really put out that much damage, so they're going to have to be really, really careful around this area. But with Murzik and the rest of his team having those creep tumors, they're able to move around and poke wherever possible. Stitches does get caught there. Oddish needs to be careful. Brightwing moving on in here, and Gerbear and Oddish very low on HP. And Karazim, although he can get the auto attacks in, there's no Immortal for him to attack here, so he's not able to heal his tanks. They're forced to retreat and go ahead and tap the wells.
I would love to see Peekaboo come out from Brightwing to make sure that they just have so much vision, that they're the ones who completely control the vision. There's a lot of spaces where you can move around. Even you can see the vents into the little circular area.
Yeah.
If you're able to pull someone in there with a hook, then you can body block them in and there's no getting out. And then you're going to get a quick kill off of that. So I would love to just to see them prioritize vision completely so that way they can focus on burning down the Immortal and win the objective battle.
Greymane's a little bit late to this party here. We're going to be seeing the rest of the team for East Carolina try and focus down this Immortal, but already it looks like Minnesota, although being a tad bit late here, is actually going to lose out on it. Zagara actually went back to tap her well as Brightwing. Brightwing came in with a full heal and mana, but unfortunately didn't get the damage on there, and East Carolina is going to win that exchange. Perhaps I underestimated the strength of Vala and Greymane when focusing down on Immortal.
And it's going to get stronger too as they start to build up that auto attack build for Vala, although still wondering what they might grab here at level 4. But yeah, this is going to be a not very highly shielded Ilarion, so I like the decision to split push. Just have one member who can soak the minions here once they start to come back to them, and push in and try to take out some of the towers up in top.
And that's what's happening here for East Carolina at the very, very top. They're pushing in a little bit. Luckily, Minnesota caught them on their bluff and did rotate well here to make sure that they didn't lose too much. And Minnesota actually finds themselves a little bit ahead in experience.
Yeah, only one tower, I believe, out of that whole thing.
Which is, you would rather get two. Two would be nice.
Yeah.
One is not as great as you would like. Oddish does get a hook, but it looks like it's going to actually hurt her as Gonzo is going to follow up with the Wolf, and Prey landing that Stormbolt will secure a kill.
And there you can see the Peekaboo just providing a lot of vision to the team. The area is huge. And where we had the tower takedown and the Immortal pickup for East Carolina, a lot more aggression and a lot more structures being taken out by Minnesota.
I want you to do me a favor and keep an eye on Subnova over here. Subnova is going for the Hail Mary arcane missiles and orbs there. Tried to hit Red Angel down on the bottom left, just barely missed, but you can tell that he wants to make a statement in this game and say, hey, we're Minnesota, and we're going to go to game number 3. We're going to take it. We're going to make the plays, and we're going to take out our opponents, especially as fast as we can.
Right. I mean, I did say that East Carolina would be the one to take this, but it does come down to getting hooked and being able to pull people out of position and take them out. In Minnesota, they have all of the momentum here. They're the ones who feel very good, knowing that they've been able to put a wrench into the plans of East Carolina. So as long as they can keep avoiding those as they've been doing, or jump on Stitches as soon as the hook comes in, that's going to throw off East Carolina, and that's what they need to do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really feel like this team comp has put a lot of pressure on Oddish here to be the one to carry her team, and I think that's fine with it. They've been in a scenario where that works out for them, but will sheer teamwork and sheer plays work out for Minnesota over that? That's mainly what's happening here in this game. Pressure occurring still in the top lane here as we see Minnesota grabbing the mercenary camps. The bottom mercenary camps have been grabbed for East Carolina, so they have their own pressure there. Zagara looks like she'll clear it up, but already on the right side, we see the Immortal fight occurring for both teams.
And teamwork is going to favor the more experienced team, and it's Minnesota who has all 5 of their roster returning from last year. So they have this great synergy, but neck in neck once again are these Immortals.
Remember, that was a 45 actually. Only 4 members were on the Immortal here for Minnesota. Zagara joins the next time they could win this race. Zagara now rotating over, going to drop that Hydra and work in her auto attacks. Gonzo bringing in the damage as well here and really trying to proc the attacks.
Oh my gosh, who is it going to be? It looks like once again Ilarion will barely push down the lanes, but still, they've done such a good job of making sure that the shield is negligible so that they really just can't capitalize on these big Immortals.
You know, I'm really underestimating the strength here of Vala and Greymane, these 2 warriors. Diablo and Stitches. Stitches does do decent damage, but Diablo's damage is relatively low. But then again, I forget, Karazim is a guy that brings in damage as well to get those auto attacks in. That will be a hook, and Anish has finally hit one of the hooks that will secure them a takedown. That's what East Carolina wants to see.
With every hook they land like that, with every pick they get, the confidence rises. The knowledge that they can do this. They can pull Minnesota apart, and they can move on to the Epic 8. So with that, they finally take down a 4th. They've evened up the experience, and they're looking to get those heroic abilities.
Let's keep an eye on the rotation down here. Zagara was in the bottom left trying to push in and grab whatever she could in terms of experience, but now seeing that East Carolina has disappeared from the top lane, Minnesota has pulled back, but they will be starting to have to deal with grabbing these mercenary camps that will be sent by East Carolina.
Trying to clear up the creep as much as they can. We do have endless creep too, so it becomes much harder to even find those creep tumors and even take them out. They gain a lot of health with endless creep too.
Yeah, they do. Oddish is going to see Prey moving in. Prey wants to try and disrupt this. No decides to pull back as it was just a little bit too late. And of course, if he does die there, that's level 10 immediately for East Carolina, which would allow for them to turn around and get into a straight engagement. Nice safe play there. They can clear this up if they would like from a safe distance.
Yeah, they're both in that position where it's like, nobody die right now. Nobody die and give them heroic abilities because they're going to just jump right on that. I mean, Sundering could come out from Minnesota as well as the Devouring Maw. So that's something that they could easily jump on and be able to take the rest out. But then similarly, we are going to have Putrid Vial. It's going to be Apocalypse from Diablo. So if they can really get Minnesota into a close space, maybe trying to run away through that Immortal space back toward their base, that might be a place where they throw the Apocalypse down and force someone to get stunned by that, hooked back into the team and taken out.
Very, very cool. That could happen as well. East Carolina on the very top left is actually grabbing their mercenary camp. Zagara has shown up to try and take it away. We see Soybean phase shifting up at the very top lane right now, and Greymane does get picked off as the mercenary camp is grabbed. There it is. Now back in the bottom right, we saw Oddish go for an engagement and tried to Putrid Vial there, but unfortunately was not there in time. Nice transition by Minnesota to, one, steal the mercenary camps, get a kill on Greymane, and work together to get pressure on the top lane.
Greymane is going to be popping back up just as the Immortals spawn. So this is going to be different from how we had before, where the teams were just racing as fast as possible. So we have East Carolina just trying to defend until Greymane can get back up. Minnesota are waiting so patiently. They're trying to get a party bush happening if they can find somebody moving over to the Immortal, but with not seeing where everyone was, East Carolina are playing it safe as well.
Poking here, grabbing any arcane missile shots they can. Oddish looking for a hook there, wants to hit Brightwing, Gonzo, or Subnova. Does land on Murd and trying to get him stunned once again by the Immortal stun. Unfortunately, the Dwarf Toss will be a little bit too much, though. It was close. Prey forced to use the Avatar here to stay alive. The Sundering hits 4 members again. There's the Devouring Maw. Gonzo is a beast on Thrall here, but 1 member does get picked off here as Vala is taken apart. Oddish and Demore is in trouble, and Minnesota is winning this team fight pretty handedly.
There goes a Storm Bolt onto Oddish, slowed down from the Thunderburn, and can they get Stitches out of here? A hook goes down onto Murzik, but Oddish has to be careful. Gare Bear overpowers Murden into the team, and they will be able to come back with one. The Apocalypse and Soybean goes down.
They turn the fight around. Nice hook there, nice APOC, but Gare Bear was definitely the MVP in that team fight with that overpower throw behind Murden. Brightwing getting picked off as well. And a situation that Minnesota seemed to have won already and could have gone for Immortal. They pushed a little bit too far and were punished for it. Now Gonzo, Murzik, and it looks like Subnova getting a hook is going to have to deal with this pressure from the entire team of East Carolina. Murzik in trouble and will be dispatched of. Gare Bear trying to retreat will be saved by Dirty Harry, and the teamwork is starting to work out for East Carolina.
Now, with lowish amounts of respawn timers, East Carolina need to be careful here. They're starting to get pretty low, and they do lose Tarzim. The Rain of Vengeance, though, hits 3 members, and they take Gonzo down too.
Subnova gets a reset in the top left corner, but he is low on mana. Oddish trying to help out. Red Angel helping out at the same time. 4 members did go down from Minnesota. Subnova trying to find a way to get into this fight. Unfortunately, can't do anything by her lonesome unless she can come down here and pick off Demore. So watch out for that wolf there.
Yeah, they need to be careful because they have low health bars, and Subnova is sharking around, wants to try to maybe pick someone off. But they want to be able to get this Immortal down before going back. A lot of times we'll see teams go back when they reach the halfway point, but the point that they had gotten so many heroes down, they just wanted to try to rush it through, get the Immortal so that they wouldn't have to get into another fight and potentially lose this Immortal phase.
Very true. The back and forth skirmish will eventually go to East Carolina here as they do get an Immortal, and a very robust one at that, as they have a lot of shields here pushing the bottom, even grabbing the mercenary camps at the same time, just getting a heavy amount of pressure here in the bottom lane.
And they've got 13-2. We'll be looking to see if they can get the hooks. I also really love the overpowers into Apocalypse. It's been so good. But we have to hand it to Gare Bear. As I said, the Apocalypses have been on point, especially the overpower right into it. Stuns them out for so long that they're able to take someone down, and then from there just force Minnesota to get back out of the fight.
Yeah, his kill-to-death ratio is relatively low, but he doesn't need to be an assassination god. He doesn't have to come in and take out his opponents. All he has to do is get the engage and set up his teammate for plays, and they'll do the rest. And Gare Bear is doing just that on Diablo, a hero that is a premier gank warrior. He shows up, he throws people behind him, he body blocks them for the teammates. Gare Bear is doing great on that hero. Gonzo will get hooked here. Sundering has been popped. All 5 members do get hit for East Carolina, but there's no follow-up. The Rain of Vengeance into APOC is huge.
It's so good. The Devouring Maw catches some members, but during that, Soybean is going to be taken out. Prey barely dwarf tossing away, but just kidding, because we have a Greymane who can always go for lethal. He's going after Subnova. 4 members down for Minnesota.
Oddish knows how to hit that Q button. She brings in hooks left and right. This will be a dead keep. I don't think there is enough damage here to go for an all-in on the core. Take your winnings, grab the keep, and retreat. Go back home, grab mercenary camps, get level 16, get healed up, and prepare for the next Immortal phase. East Carolina has done great in this section of the game.
I think maybe that they're going to have to change their name to Q-Build Stitches. It may happen. They're going tilted trick. I'm sorry, but... All right, so I love this. They're just being super aggressive. They're 16-13. That is the golden place to be in, and they're going to pick up every single mercenary camp and keep Minnesota responding to them. Not where they want to be here, and this is everything for East Carolina. They've gotten a keep down, and this is what I'm talking about. All they had to do was hit that one hook, and you could see things change for them. You saw how they changed their play.
Okay, so we're looking at Minnesota. How do you come back here? First off, you start moving towards 16. You get your map pressure back, deal with these mercenary camps, and you stop getting hooked.
Yes.
There's so many times where first hook that Oddish will throw out, it misses, but in the middle of a team fight, everyone forgets about positioning, and you'll see the second hook always be the nail in the coffin for Minnesota. So watch out for that. You can't get hit on the second hook there. Subnova got hit last time, and that caused a major, major team fight.
And they've got this double threat composition where it's like, okay, I can dodge and weave for the hooks, but then Diablo just runs in and is like, hello, throws you back into the apocalypse, and the rest of the team is there with tons of Gilney and cocktail damage, and then, of course, Vala to just take them down so fast. And once again, they're in place immediately to start taking out the Immortal. Halfway down is Beleth before Minnesota even gets to the center of the battleground.
Well, we'll see if Gare Bear will continue to be a friendly Diablo and bring in the hugs and say hello to opposing members, as we have the team rotating around here, heading straight for the Immortal, and they have a huge win here as they've already chucked half the health here of the Immortal. Prey looking around, will hit the Stormbolt. Oddish will be forced to retreat. A nice heal here from Dirty Harry will keep her alive. Gare Bear does go in. The APOC is slamming. 3 members are actually going to be get here. Subnova bring in the Disintegrate, trying to bring it down, but the Rain of Vengeance hitting once again, and Red Angel is working in those auto attacks.
Yet again, another Devouring Maw on the brink of death for Zagar, and it doesn't really accomplish what they want, as once again, a 4 for nothing for East Carolina.
Could it be a 5 for nothing?
5 for nothing as Subnova goes down, and that's going to be it, I think, Trikslyr. They've been able to get a very highly shielded Ilarion. It's going to push toward the top, but they're saying, we can't wait for this guy. We don't have time for this. Let's go to the core.
Yeah, a lot of key heroics are down for Minnesota, and we're going to see East Carolina push in and start applying damage to the core. Now, a few members will start spawning here for Minnesota. Can they hold this? They need to start taking out the assassins. Vala is very, very important. In fact, East Carolina decides to play it safe. Again, a note to anyone, if you do wind up playing against East Carolina, if they do achieve this victory, stop giving Oddish stitches. There's another hook. Zagara gets picked off, and now they can rotate to the top lane here, being in a 5v4 scenario, and at least ensure a keep.
Yep, Ilarion already taking out some of these towers, gonna start to move into the keep too, and there's always the threat of the hooks. Oddish looking to just be able to get 1, 2 more down to know that they can get that victory. But I like that they did back off. They had fairly low health and mana bars, playing for the long game. Yeah, this is it. This is the game. It's okay to play a little bit more passively, especially when you are in this much control.
So Nova being a little bit too aggressive there, takes a lot of damage there from minions mostly there, and the cocktail from Demore. Now the Immortal still at health, can keep pushing into this keep. We're gonna see more aggression here, but the good news is all members are up from Minnesota, but still 20 seconds until we see a Devouring Maw. Can Minnesota defend this? They have to. In fact, there went a huge Sundering. A nice Disintegrate will help out, but we do see East Carolina keeping with the push, and they're going to secure the victory, taking the series 2-1.
The series get closer and closer for East Carolina, but they are still able to eke out a win. And now that means they get to move to the Epic 8, which is where they have been focusing their attentions this entire tournament.
Yeah, we're going to see them most likely prepare for Arizona State University, but we have to wait for Arizona State to actually win their match if they're actually going to do that. So that will be coming up very, very soon here. But again, just a huge amount of props to the team for really adjusting. In game number 1, they came out with a bit of an odd composition that was very, very tasteful to see. It was a great treat, actually. And in game number 3, they went back to their roots. They said, you know, we're a very strong Stitches player. We got a great Diablo player. Let's grab those guys and follow up when necessary. And it worked out for them.
Well, I can't wait to hear from Oddish, who I hear we have on the phone to let us know about how they're feeling after that match.
Like, I'm so stressed.
Hi, Oddish! So you said you're really stressed. I gotta know, how are you guys feeling after game 2?
Eating so fast. That was insane. It was good though.
Congratulations. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
So you were able to get Stitches in the 3rd game, but I want to go back to the first couple, and knowing that you had the Anubarak. Tell us a little bit about that Anubarak pick.
Well, we kind of wanted to choke out their tank picks because we knew that they played a lot of Johanna, and Anubarak was kind of our pocket pick that we've been practicing. It ended up not working out as great as we hoped in the 2nd game, but it was good.
Yeah, you guys maybe ended up getting choked out on the Warriors a little bit in the 2nd game. What was the feel of the team after losing that game? Did you still feel like you could take the match, or were you pretty scared of their momentum?
Oh, no, we weren't afraid. We just had to recenter, regroup, play our own map, and make it happen.
Very cool. Well, game number 3, that was such a spectacular showing. At what point in game number 3 on Battlefield of Eternity did you guys feel, all right, we have this, we're making the plays, and we're going to take the win?
Oh, when that last hook on Li Ming, I mean, that was pretty late. but that felt really strong to get a full team wipe.
All right. Well, you have the rest of the day to start preparing for tomorrow's match. You guys made it to the Epic Gate. What are you doing? How do you all prepare for tomorrow?
We're just going to relax, take it easy, and bring our A game. Shouldn't be too tough.
Okay, then. Well, looking forward to it. Great job. Congratulations to your group. We're very, very proud of you guys. Well done.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Oddish. Congratulations to East Carolina, who get to move on to the Epic 8, take a little bit of a break before tomorrow, and get their mindset ready for what could be potentially their hardest match yet.
All right. Well, guys, we want to make sure that we invite you to the Heroic Four and the Grand Finals that will be occurring in Seattle on March 9th and March 10th. Remember, general admission is free, and there is a limited number of $15 premium tickets still available through Ticketmaster. So grab one of those. You get priority access to the venue, a hero skin, and the highly coveted Heroes of the Dorm 2006 t-shirt. And remember, if that's not enough, we'll be randomly selecting one premium ticket holder for a VIP backstage tour with a friend. So go to heroesofthedorm.com for more information. We want to see you there. Gilly and I will be, of course, floating around that area, hanging out in Seattle, saying hi to everyone that shows up. So we want to see you there. Go.
We absolutely do. Yeah. Do it. Well, guys, Tim and I are going to be taking a break, but next you will have Jake and Kevin for your final matches. More Heroes of the Storm to come.